Have you ever seen anything like this? Think about this. Outside of President Trump's rallies, have you ever witnessed such a gathering of American patriots who are ready to take their country back? There was no media advertising. There was no establishment money poured into this. It was only word of mouth and a burning desire to fight for what's ours, for what belongs to us. That's what brought this movement together. That's what brought each of us here. So I want to make very, very clear the significance of what that represents. Because for so long, our movement has been torn apart and divided. For so long, we've been engaged in infighting one with another, or a lot of times, we've just been disconnected from each other. Meanwhile, our common enemy has been working, slowly gaining ground, gradually and patiently, until before we knew it, they had us surrounded. And my friends, the time for division is over, at least if we want to win this war. Unlike the left, we're individualists, and we take pride in our uniqueness, but it has to be under the same banner. Look over here, under the same banner, to defend our homeland. This is our country, and every person, every group here has a part to play in that fight, in this struggle. No one is more important than anybody else. We're all part of it, because it's not about just any one individual. If they sink, if our enemies succeed in sinking this ship that we're all on, then all of us go down together. So we have to be united. There's no other way. If you still haven't figured out that this is a war that we're engaged in, well, I'm sorry, but there's no amount of red pilling that's ever going to wake you up from that Kool-Aid. Just think about this for a second. I want everybody to open your eyes, and I know all of you have. That's why you're here. But I'm talking to all the massive people out there in this country. Open your eyes to what's truly happening in this country. Look over to Washington, D.C. and ask yourself, why is it that the people's capital in D.C. is fenced off to prevent the entry of those that it belongs to rightfully, of those whose tax dollars pay for it? You know, why do guardsmen still patrol the streets at this time? Because of an insurrection.
Well, they're afraid of us.
Well, yeah, there was an insurrection, but it's not the one that the mainstream media tells you about. The insurrection wasn't guys in Viking horns walking around the Capitol for a few minutes. The true insurrection was a group of kleptocratic politicians colluding with the deep state in order to steal an American election out of the hands of the people themselves. They say the insurrection occurred on January 6th, while the real insurrection culminated on January 20th, with Joe Biden stepping into the White House. So I don't think I need to be any more direct, do I? This was a coup that was orchestrated by traitors from within our country, working hand in hand with forces from without, like communist China. The Capitol building, the People's House, is closed off to people like you and me, like occupied territory, because it is occupied territory. This nation, once free, once sovereign, has been turned to little more than a crony corporation owned by the central banks, by the international old money dynasties, and by communist China and other forces. So let me tell you, the tragic part about January 6th wasn't whatever the media tells you it was. The tragic part was that the traitors weren't taken outside and tarred and feathered. What would the Sons of Liberty have done? What would General Washington have done? This country was founded by men who understood that rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And if we lost our way as a nation, and if we lost our freedoms, which we have, if we've been reduced to a state of captivity in our own fatherland, it's because we turned our backs on God, the true God of heaven, and are now reaping the fruits that are given to every nation that does so. We turned our back on him every time injustice was codified in law and the people did nothing to fight back, when we just went along with the program to show what good citizens we are, when in reality our duty as citizens was abrogated by compromising with evil. It was a time to fight back when an unelected court institutionalized the wholesale slaughter of millions of unborn children. And if we want divine providence to favor this nation again, then we have to end the abomination that is abortion. And when I'm elected, I will introduce legislation ensuring that not only is abortion immediately outlawed everywhere in the Union, but that all those involved are tried for capital crimes. And it was time to fight. It was time to fight the minute the government began restricting our gun rights. in flagrant violation of the Constitution. They want all of us, every single one of us, disarmed because they know that the fight for freedom ultimately won't be decided at the ballot box. It will be decided on the battlefield. And all their money and their power won't save them from the righteous indignation of an armed people. That's why they want to disarm us. And so when I'm in there in Washington, I'll push protections so that true constitutional carry is never restricted by anyone, not at the state level, not at the local level, not at the federal level. We need true constitutional carry. And also, never will citizens ever again be told what kind of gun they can or can't own, or how much ammo. And our militias will have their constitutional role safeguarded. And then we'll go ahead and we'll tell Marco Rubio where he can put his red flag laws. We'll never forget that on January 6th, we'll never forget all the people who betrayed us, Marco Rubio among them, who betrayed us, betrayed the president, betrayed this country and the oaths they made by putting their stamp of approval on a fraudulent certification of an election in favor of Joe Biden. But the seeds of betrayal began a long time before that, with politicians who refused year after year to ever safeguard the integrity of this election. Now in Florida, thankfully, thanks to bold leaders like Ron DeSantis, our great governor, we can trust that our elections are honest, and we have to continue to participate in the electoral process. It's absolutely vital. It's our duty and our obligations as citizens. Nevertheless, think about this. What about Congress and the presidency? Those bodies, and we here in Florida, are affected by what goes on in other states and the fraudulent practices that have been institutionalized in those places. That fraud affects who becomes president, the makeup of Congress, and then the laws that they pass or the executive orders that they sign affect us right here in Florida. That's why it isn't just enough to stop the fight for election integrity here at the state level or at the local level. We have to take it to the federal government. And that's why when elected, I will introduce the Integrity Act, a suite of election safeguards for federal races in every state. They will require voter ID, end motor voter, mandate voter roll purges, and stop the days-long counting that result in magical discoveries of ballots. We also need to ban technology like Dominion and Smartmatic and everything like them, and impose stiff criminal penalties for anyone who prevents poll watchers from doing their job. And then there's the courts. The Supreme Court, what a disappointment, right? And all the federal courts, really. But how much did we trust in the Supreme Court? And for so long, as Republicans and conservatives, we thought we were just doing our duty, going and voting for Republicans and saying, if we just vote for Republicans, we'll have a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, and then we'll be able to, things will sort themselves out. But they didn't. In the moment of truth, when we really needed them, when we were truly counting on them, and they have the opportunity to save this republic, they were nowhere to be found and complete their election of duty. And that's why the Supreme Court is going to be bound under the Integrity Act to fulfill its constitutional responsibility of hearing cases involving presidential election fraud. The reign of the black robe oligarchy is coming to an end. And judicial activism will be reined in once and for all. And not only their reign, but that of all tyrants who trample on the people's rights. I will introduce legislation to ensure that no government entity, federal, state, or local, arbitrarily forces Americans into house arrest or shuts down their businesses as they did during the supposed pandemic. We have to stand up for the rights of the individual. The private rights of citizens in this country have been under assault for far too long, creating an all-powerful, all-reaching dictatorial power based out of Washington, D.C. that is a complete abhorrence to what the founding fathers intended, and they would be ashamed if they were alive today and saw what we've been putting up with, and they would say enough. And I do believe that the people now are saying enough and are ready to start taking our freedom back once and for all. And the entire so-called pandemic for the last year has been nothing more than a huge power grab, a manufactured crisis of globalists working hand in hand with the Chinese, with the media, the Democrats, to steal the election, to rob our freedoms, to put us into a situation where they can have now, according to them, the power to dictate what we do with our own bodies now. So I'll fight that one, no American has to fear about losing his job or not getting into school because they don't want to take a vaccine. This forced mandatory vaccination is one of the most abhorrent and grotesque things making up the agenda of the radical left and of the globalists. And we have to put a stop to it right now before it even gets started. So we'll make sure that not only governments are prevented from mandating it, but even employers cannot require it. Because that's one of their tactics. They're not only going through the government now, but even through all of these corporations and these businesses that they control that are socialist owned and operated. They're trying to do it through the private sector as well. Corporate communism, as other people have called it. So we have to make sure these protections exist for regular citizens, people like you and me, on all fronts. And that includes the schools. No mandates in the schools for the kids to get in there. We're going to remove also, to take on the vaccine lobby, all of these special legal protections that have been afforded to them over the years. And we're going to stop not only government-issued vaccine passports, but the ones required by corporations, corporate communists, who so often collude together to impose socialism on us, even without the government's help. And we're going to stand strong. Let me tell you this, and I'm going to be very, very clear about this, because some of the people who've been up here today, including my good friend Jamie, have talked about the fight that we've been having for our history and for our culture, and it's been one of the cornerstone issues facing this community. And I think for many of us here, many of you who know me personally, it was the issue that brought you in and got you involved. So let me be very clear that we're going to stand for our culture, our history, our heritage. And we refuse to be canceled. We refuse to be silenced. Political correctness is going to die a very slow, long, and agonizing death. And the Marxist assault on our history is going to gain no more ground. Southern culture is an irremovable part of Florida. And for so long, the Republican Party has been more than happy to win elections thanks to strong turnout from the state's Southerners, but then idly stands by as Southern culture is torn down everywhere. Well, that ends now. That ends today, my friends. And I will make sure that our memorials, the memorials to the brave men who fought and died on this ground, whether they wore the blue or the gray, are forever protected against degenerate vandals and spineless politicians. But protecting our heritage, our culture, and the very fabric of our society goes far beyond even that. It goes to the most primordial responsibility of government, which is to protect the borders of a country and protect its people against invasion. At this moment, the Biden regime is facilitating an invasion of this country, committing treason in the process. And my answer to all that is very different from Marco Rubio and his Gang of Eight kumbaya hand-holding. I'm tired of hearing about compassion for those who break our laws, like all of us. How about compassion for once for America's citizens, for the people who are affected by illegal immigration, by criminal illegals who prey upon our families, for all those who have lost their livelihoods because of illegal aliens who come and take American jobs, and a lot of times with the full backing and support of all these corporations who, again, are part of the same swamp that President Trump fought to drain. So we need to finish the wall, deport the millions of illegals, shut down the NGOs helping the invaders cross, use our military to defend the border and the birthright citizenship, cut off the worker visas, and try the politicians who create sanctuary cities for sedition. That's how you solve the immigration crisis. And I'll tell you another thing. Big Tech's days are numbered. Their days of operating as a criminal cartel and as a fourth branch of government are coming to an end. There'll be no more pretty soon. Because as soon as I step into the Capitol, they can expect me to introduce a bill preventing them from censoring, fact-checking, deplatforming, shadow banning, demonetizing, or deleting the accounts of anything political. They are completely part of the election steal, and the fact that they consider themselves to be neutral platforms, even while silencing speech and destroying our First Amendment rights, is completely diabolical, and they have to be stopped. And the only thing that can stop them at this point, because of how powerful they are and how entrenched they are in government and everywhere, is patriots like us taking back power in the halls of government. Now listen, between all of the ties of these supposed elites, the ties that they have to communist China, the ties that they have to global human trafficking rings, there's enough grounds there to lock all of them up in Guantanamo Bay for life.
Yes.
So one by one, the likes of George Soros, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and all the rest of the deep staters, they will fall, I can promise you that.
Yes.
But my friends, this goes far beyond the scope of any one race, of any one election, or of any one office holder. We all know, we all realize, we're realists. We realize that a lone vote in the Senate won't beat back the tide of communism by itself. That's why we have to build a foundation based on the movement that we're creating right here, right now.
Yes.
A new patriot movement. A mass mobilized patriot movement. A patriot movement willing and eager to fight wherever, whenever, and however it must in order to stop our enemy.
Yes.
My friends, listen, never believe that this war is lost and never lose hope. The America we know, the America we knew and loved, perhaps in a sense it no longer exists, but it can be restored and we will restore it.
Yes, right.
And I can tell you that our enemies will hold power only for a little season, but eventually the divine justice of a righteous God will fall upon them.
Yes, it will.
Our America is beautiful. It's a beautiful country. Our America is worth fighting for. It's worth giving everything for. And that America isn't found in the Capitol or the other so-called halls of power, no. I'll tell you where that power really is and where America really lies. Like most of you here, like me, are parents. And think about the first time you ever held your newborn child in your arms, and you knew in that moment that your life had changed forever. It'd never be the same. You knew you would do anything to protect that innocent child you were holding. And that love is the fire that keeps us going, that keeps us fighting, that keeps us willing to sacrifice anything and everything for the sake of what we most treasure. That's what America is all about.
Yeah.
That's the future of this country that we're fighting for. And that fire burning inside each one of you, and I can see it so beautifully in your faces and your eyes, that fire is why this patriot movement, starting from humble beginnings, is going to win, and it's going to restore America.
Yeah.
My friends, thank you. God bless you. God bless the state of Florida, and God bless the United States of America.
Yeah.